What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about Dragon Quest III and its remake that just recently launched on November 14th, which I was mostly interested in covering because of the significance of that series, which unfortunately has mostly just passed me by. I'm pretty unfamiliar with Dragon Quest as a whole, and this seemed like a decent way to play some of it and bring some information to you at the same time. So right away though, I did receive a copy of this from Square Enix specifically on the game's actual launch day, but that was also a day that I had just gotten home from a trip that I had taken, so it's taken me a little while to actually get around to covering it. Now, the original Dragon Quest III was a 1988 release, I believe, that was very big in Japan and less so in North America, which, played no small part in the fact that I really don't know much about Dragon Quest personally. But while that original title did some interesting things like introducing a party heal outside of combat type of quality of life changes, the remake here kind of brings a lot of that to a new level, really. So for starters, we have the HD-2D graphics, which I am personally a pretty big fan of. I really enjoy that art style, though I will say that remaking this game was apparently quite the endeavor, as they have it priced at $60 US, which frankly feels like a lot for a remake of a game this old, but luckily those graphics aren't the only thing that change. Now, just to give a basic setup for this one, Dragon Quest III is basically about our character, the hero, going on a quest to stop an archdemon that killed our father when we were just a child, and now that we've grown up a bit, we take up that same quest to protect the kingdom after getting a blessing by the king to track this thing down. Now, what was especially interesting to me, though, is that rather than have a party of, dedicated companions with backstories and stuff, Dragon Quest III here allows you to take a more customized approach. After you meet with the king, you then go meet up with a different NPC who sets you up with recruits that you can bring into your party. Now, you can take some pre-generated ones, or you can go upstairs and fully customize these characters, which includes basically making them your own. That is to say, picking their class and appearance and things like that, and making sure that the 4 people you ultimately have in your party have synergies between all of their classes. What's more, though, each of these characters gets assigned a personality trait, which affects the growth rate of their individual stats, so that's something you have to be aware of. And then at the start of the game, you're given a little, mini questionnaire, which I believe does the same for your character. Now, unique to the remake, though, you do actually get one extra class or vocation, which is the Monster Wrangler, so you'll have some new options to take on combat with. Now, when it comes to combat, probably also worth a mention that the game added difficulty options, allowing you to customize the experience a little bit if you prefer, with harder difficulties doing things like reducing experience gained as well as gold earned. Beyond that, though, I would say combat is a pretty traditional JRPG sort of affair. Pretty much turn-based. You can set on an auto battle mode that you can speed up to make the battles go faster, as you'll be finding a lot of random encounters in the overworld, which can be mitigated through the use of items that will keep random battles away from you, or at the very least reduce their rate. Now, on the progression side of that, when our characters level up, they mostly just gain stat increases based on, of course, that personality that I mentioned, and then based on the vocation they have, they will also earn and learn spells and abilities at the same time, of course expanding what they're capable of. Now, at least in the early game, there do seem to be some interesting gameplay elements as well, such as, for instance, finding the keys to unlock doors, which can then lead you to all sorts of little secrets. And there's also a little reward system for finding these medals that seem to just populate the world, and if you turn them in, you can get specific gear upgrades. And when it comes to gear, it looks like some of that has the potential to be interesting as well, with it providing you with things like weapons and stuff that have different attack patterns against the enemies you'll be facing in combat. For instance, I picked up a thorn whip pretty early on that could hit multiple enemies kind of adjacent to each other, which I thought was kind of neat. And then, of course, there's a whole host of elemental magic and weaknesses and resistances and all that. So while none of it is exactly unexpected given the type of game this is, it still seems decently solid to mess around with. So putting all of that together, just to wrap it up for the sake of this video, I would say this seems like a pretty quality of life heavy remake that of course also makes it a bit easier to look at for sure, and an art style that I'm a really big fan of. Now, I have seen some complaints about the translation and how that was localized. And frankly, I don't know enough about the original title to really have much of an opinion on that, but I will say that some of the mechanics of this are interesting to me, especially how you sort of customize your initial party. And for those interesting moments, I'd be curious to experience this game through the lens of this remake, which is probably enough to get me to play it in the future, though a review won't be imminent by any means, as I am fairly busy and there's a lot going on right now, so it would be a while before I could double back to this one. But as a sort of initial first impression, I would say, again, this seems like a solid way to check out a classic JRPG in a much more convenient way. But my main concern there is that a good enough experience to justify a $60 price tag? And while that's certainly an answer that's going to vary from person to person, I won't really be sure until I get through playing it for myself. But I think that's where we're going to wrap up this particular video, so I certainly hope you enjoyed it, found it interesting. I'd love to know what you think about this one down in the comments section below, either the original or anything the remake happened to have changed for you, which naturally means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.